The rise of Adolf Hitler is often taught as if it was a political story driven only by ideology, speeches, and a furious public. But behind the scenes, powerful industrial empires built the machine that lifted Hitler from a failed artist into the Führer of Germany. Among these industrial giants, the Thyssen family stood at the very top. Their name rarely appears in school textbooks, yet their steel, mines, banks, and money shaped nearly every stage of Hitler's rise. To understand how one family held the power to influence a dictator, we must go back to August Thyssen, the man who built the foundations of the empire. Born in 1842, August Thyssen was known as King Thyssen because of his immense control over Germany's steel sector. By the early 1900s, his operations controlled coal mines, iron ore fields, and steel plants across the Ruhr Valley, the industrial heart of Germany. Verified archives show that by 1913, Thyssen facilities produced more than half of the steel used in German industry, and his network employed more than 50,000 workers. His factories built the ships, cannons, and infrastructure that powered the German Empire before World War I. When August Thyssen died in 1926, he left behind a business machine with assets worth billions in today's dollars, and an internal culture built on efficiency, secrecy, and absolute loyalty to the family. The empire then passed to August's sons, Fritz and Heinrich Thyssen. Fritz became the political leader and banker of the family, while Heinrich managed their international operations in the Netherlands. Fritz Thyssen, who would later be called Hitler's first major industrial backer, was deeply shaped by Germany's humiliation after World War I and the economic collapse that followed. Verified records from the German Reichsbank and corporate archives confirm that the Thyssen Empire lost over 70% of its pre-war value due to hyperinflation. The Ruhr occupation by France in 1923 hit them especially hard because most of their coal and steel production was located there. Fritz Thyssen became angry at the Weimar Republic, which he believed was too weak to restore Germany's power. In the late 1920s, Thyssen began funding right-wing nationalist groups that opposed democracy and demanded a return to German strength and militarization. Among these groups was the then small and struggling National Socialist German Workers' Party, Hitler's Nazi Party. According to the Nuremberg trial documents and Thyssen's own book I Paid Hitler, the family made its first major donation in 1923, helping keep Hitler politically alive after the failed beer hall putsch. By 1928, the Thyssen financial network, working through their bank Vereinigte Stahlwerke, became one of the largest industrial giants in Europe. Vereinigte Stahlwerke, formed in 1926, combined the Thyssen companies with other industrialists like Hugo Stinnes and the Krupp interests. This single mega-corporation controlled around 40% of Germany's steel output and 35% of its coal production. According to economic historian Adam Tooze, this meant that whoever controlled Vereinigte Stahlwerke had enormous influence over German politics. Fritz Thyssen, who sat on the board, used this position to promote Hitler to other industrial leaders. One of the most important moments came in 1932 at the industrialists' meeting in Dusseldorf, when Thyssen invited Hitler to speak directly to 400 of Germany's richest businessmen. Verified archives confirm this speech changed everything. Many industrialists who had ignored the Nazis suddenly began donating money. Thyssen played a central role in organizing the financing for the Nazi electoral campaign that helped Hitler win millions of new votes. Once Hitler became chancellor in 1933, Thyssen's influence grew even stronger. He believed he had found the perfect political partner, someone who would crush communism, end worker strikes, and rapidly rearm Germany. Government records from the German Federal Archives reveal that Thyssen's companies were among the first to receive massive state contracts after Hitler took power. Their factories supplied steel for the construction of autobahns, tanks, and warships. Thyssen's mines were national strategic assets that fed Germany's industrial machine. In return, Hitler publicly praised Thyssen as a patriotic industrial leader. But privately, the relationship was even deeper. Hitler depended on Thyssen steel for every stage of German rearmament. Without Thyssen's coal and iron, Germany could not have built its military so quickly between 1933 and 1939. This dependency gave Thyssen a unique form of leverage. While Hitler was rising, Thyssen believed he could influence Nazi policy, especially regarding the economy and the treatment of industrialists. However, by 1937, things began to change. Hitler's regime became more radical, and his plans for war grew more aggressive. Fritz Thyssen, who had originally supported the Nazis to restore Germany, began to feel he had made a terrible mistake. Verified letters from the Thyssen family archives show that Fritz privately objected to anti-Jewish laws and opposed the increasing brutality of the regime. The breaking point came in 1939, after Germany invaded Poland. Fritz Thyssen fled Germany and wrote a letter to Hermann Göring, formally resigning from the Nazi Party. Hitler was furious. The dictator who once courted Thyssen's support now turned against him. The Gestapo seized all of Thyssen's German assets, including properties, factories, and bank accounts. Fritz was captured in France and eventually sent to the Sachsenhausen concentration camp, where he remained until the final months of the war. The man who once believed he controlled Hitler was now a prisoner of the system he had helped build. Meanwhile, Heinrich Thyssen, the other brother, had taken a different path. He had moved much of the family's wealth abroad before the war began. Heinrich controlled the Dutch holding company, Bank voor Handel en Scheepvaart, which functioned as a financial safe house for the Thyssen fortune. This company played a key role in keeping Thyssen wealth intact while Germany was at war. Verified Dutch and Swiss banking documents reveal that this holding company was used to shelter money, conduct international transactions, and maintain partial control over the family's global assets. Because Heinrich was based outside Germany and avoided political involvement, he survived the war with much of the Thyssen wealth protected. This financial strategy allowed the Thyssen Empire to rise again after 1945, while many other German industrial families were destroyed. After Germany's defeat, the Thyssen corporations were investigated by Allied forces. Many industrialists were charged for supporting the Nazi war machine, but the Thyssen family had a unique advantage. Most documents linking them directly to war crimes had been destroyed or hidden in their Dutch and Swiss companies. Fritz Thyssen himself testified that he regretted supporting Hitler and blamed the dictator for deceiving German industrialists. Although he was fined heavily and temporarily lost control of his companies, the Thyssen name survived. By the 1950s, the family regained influence. They merged their steel operations into what eventually became Thyssen AG, one of Germany's post-war industrial giants. In 1999, Thyssen merged with Krupp, another historic steel empire once involved in Nazi rearmament, to form Thyssen-Krupp, which remains one of Germany's largest industrial corporations today. What makes the Thyssen story so extraordinary is not just their role in Hitler's rise, but the deeper question it raises. Who truly holds power in times of political chaos? Was Hitler the unstoppable force history often portrays, or was he lifted by wealthy industrialists who believed they could control him? Verified historical evidence shows that without the Thyssen Empire's money, steel, mines, and political connections, Hitler's rise would have been far slower and far weaker. And yet, the relationship did not end with Hitler controlling the Thyssens. In many ways, Thyssen power continued even after the war, surviving through smart financial planning, foreign banking networks, and international business operations. Their empire adapted, evolved, and prospered long after the dictator they once supported was gone. The Thyssen secret is this: political power is often temporary, but economic empires can shape generations. Hitler's rule lasted just 12 years. The Thyssen industrial machine has lasted more than 150 years and still exists today. The story of the Thyssen family is a warning about what happens when economic power and political extremism join forces. It shows how wealthy industrialists can shape the destiny of nations, how money can fuel movements, and how even the greatest dictators often depend on financiers and businessmen working behind the scenes. It is also a reminder that history is rarely shaped by one person alone. Behind every leader, there are invisible forces, corporations, financiers, powerful families, whose influence is not always written in public records, but whose impact is felt for generations. If you enjoyed this story, stay with us for more deep dives into the financial forces that have shaped our world. HistoriNomica brings you the hidden stories of money, power, and empires that rewrote history. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another story of how finance built the world we live in today. Your support helps us uncover more rare archives, more powerful histories, and more lessons from the empires that shaped our world.